Okay,
Showtime.
we're going.
Okay,
Thank you, E.
thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am calling to order the administrative hearing of December 9th, 2021. My name is Ned Thomas. I serve as planning director for the city of Milpitas, and I will be the hearing officer for today's virtual hearing. We appreciate everyone's participation. We will begin today's hearing, like every city meeting, with a public forum. Any member of the online audience who wishes to provide live verbal comments during the meeting must first register to join the meeting via a link provided on the meeting agenda. The meeting agenda is posted on the city's website at www.ci.milpitas.ca.gov. All speakers will be allowed up to 1 minute to speak on any item. Each person shall be limited to one comment per agenda item and one comment for non-agenda items. No response is required from city staff on any item not on the agenda. Please use the chat box if you need technical assistance only. The chat box will not serve as a public comment forum. We appreciate your cooperation with that. Hearing Secretary, Liz, are there any registered participants in the online queue with general comments on items not on the agenda today?
At this time, zoning administrator, there are no participants in the queue with their hands up for comments.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
With that, then we'll go to the public hearing portion of today's hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. We have 2 items on our agenda. I will identify each project in order as they are listed on the agenda. I will then ask staff to provide a brief report. They will give an overview of the project and a recommendation. The applicant or the representative will then have up to 5 minutes to speak and should identify themselves by stating their name for the record. If they do not wish to speak, you can waive your time. After the applicant has spoken, I'll open the public hearing, and any member of the public who wishes to speak on the item may provide testimony up to 1 minute per speaker, either for or against the project. As previously explained, any member of the online audience who wishes to provide verbal comments during today's hearing must first register to join the Zoom meeting. To register, please follow the instructions provided on today's agenda. Following comments from the public, I'll close the public hearing. The applicant may then respond to any of the public comments or questions, or staff may respond to questions or make additional, or the applicant can make additional comments for up to 5 minutes. And then I will review the findings that are required for the item and make a decision. And that is, again, the order of today's public hearing. So again, we have 2 items on our agenda today. The first one is a minor conditional use permit to allow ancillary on-premise beer and wine sales with no separate bar. That's known as a Type 41 license under the State Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission. And this is for an existing 2,500 square foot restaurant, Beijing Chef, which is located at 1828 North Milpitas Boulevard. And we have our acting senior planner, Avery Stark, here to provide the staff report. So I'll turn the time over to Avery.
Good morning, Director Thomas, fellow staff members, and members of the public. Again, my name is Avery Stark, and I'm an acting senior planner here at the city of Milpitas. I'll be presenting a minor conditional use permit application for beer and wine sales at Beijing Chef, a new restaurant located at 1828 North Milpitas Boulevard. Next. On October 14th of 2021, the owner of Beijing Chef, the applicant, submitted an application for the minor conditional use permit to allow the on-premise sale of and service of beer and wines as an additional beverage choice for patrons at the new restaurant, Beijing Chef, an incoming restaurant located at 1825 North Milpitas Boulevard. No associated interior tenant improvements will be made as the restaurant previously occupied the space, and no bar area is proposed. There are no expansions of the space. Additional parking will not be required. The Milpitas Municipal Code requires review and approval by the zoning administrator of a minor conditional use permit for restaurants with ancillary on-premise beer and wine sales and service with no separate bar. Next. This map identifies the project location and the zoning surrounding the property. As you can see, it is surrounded primarily by commercial and residential uses as demonstrated on this map. Next. Here is the floor plan of the proposed Beijing chef. As noted, the floor plan and tenant improvements, there will be none. The proposed restaurant will serve a Beijing-style cuisine. Services include table services for approximately 45 guests. The hours of operation, including sale of beer and wine, are limited to Monday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Friday through Sunday from 10 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. The applicant is also requesting a Type 41 on-sale beer and wine license from the Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control, known as ABC, which authorizes the sale of beer and wine for consumption on or off the premise where sold. Next. Staff has confirmed that the findings for the proposed MCUP permit can be made. The service of beer and wine sales is an ancillary beverage option for patrons of a new restaurant, and no separate bar is being proposed. The parking will not be affected as the use is ancillary to the restaurant use. The applicant has also furnished the city with an alcoholic beverage service policy to ensure responsible consumption and service. Given that the proposed use is consistent with the Milpitas general plan, zoning ordinance, staff has determined that the project has been adequately conditioned to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. Next. Staff have also determined that the project is exempt from CEQA per section 5301 as an existing facility. Finally, staff recommend that the zoning administrator adopts resolution 21-026, approving minor conditional use permit number MC 210012 to allow an ancillary on-premise beer and wine sales with no separate bar, ABC Type 41 license, at an existing 2,500 square foot restaurant located at 1828 North Milpitas Boulevard, subject to the findings and attached conditions of approval. This concludes staff summary of the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, zoning administrator. Thank you.
Thank you, Avery. Before we go to the applicant, is the applicant here to make comments or?
Yes, the applicant is in the queue.
Okay. If they want to make comments, I just have a couple of quick questions to clarify. And this is mostly for any members of the public who might be listening. I think sometimes there may be a misunderstanding around city approval versus ABC approval. And if you could just clarify, I think if my understanding is correct, so alcoholic beverages, and as we indicated, they're regulated by a variety of different types of licenses by the state from the Alcoholic Beverage Control. But before the applicant goes to ABC, or maybe they've contacted them, one of the first questions that ABC will ask them is, have you received approval from the city? And I think that's the purpose that we're here today, is our zoning ordinance requires the minor conditional use permit. Once they receive that, then they can apply to ABC for their actual license.
That is correct. Yes. License, so they will now be able to make and complete their application with ABC, which will then go under review, which is when you normally see the sign. It's usually a white sign posted or a yellow sign on the door indicating the request of service. After its review with their board and their body, we will be receiving basically an affidavit that we will countersign, letting the ABC know that they have approval, land use approval from this jurisdiction with the attached approval and conditions so that they may proceed.
And thank you. And then one of the things that we look at for the city, and it's detailed in the staff report, and it applies in this case, has to do with term that we use is convenience and necessity. And that usually applies when we also use a term over concentration. So in a particular area, if there are more than a certain number of alcoholic beverage licenses, and I think it's based on population, then it's considered over concentrated. But that the city can continue to consider those, and ABC will continue to consider those licenses if there's I wouldn't call it an overriding need, but if there's a convenience or necessity justification for approval of the permit, which certainly applies in this case. Most restaurants serve alcoholic beverages, in this case beer and wine, to their patrons, and it's along with food. And there's a whole laundry list of rules that the ABC has around, what is a convenience and necessity. And I believe that well, it's detailed in the staff report and applies here. I don't know if you wanted to make any other comments on that point.
Of course. Yeah. So according to ABC, the project does fall above the maximum allotted concentration of liquor license for the specific census tract that it's within, which currently authorizes 4 on-sale businesses for this type of license. The census tract currently has 6 active on-sale license. And in order for ABC to grant this pending license application, it must be demonstrated that the public convenience or necessity would serve by the issuance of the license per a business professional code. And so the city is, in its review, in conjunction with our police department, their alcoholic beverage control policy for their staff. And as an ancillary use to an existing and now new restaurant, we find that it to be not detrimental to the general welfare of public to be able to provide this service to our residents and patrons.
And that, just as a matter of note for the record too, this is not uncommon for a shopping center like this one, where there are a number of restaurants that have ABC licenses to serve alcohol with their food. The overconcentration, really, my understanding is the intent is to avoid an overconcentration of, say, alcohol, pure alcohol, off sale and or a proliferation of bars. But it's not uncommon for a shopping center with a large number of restaurants to have an overconcentration. So that's that's part of the justification.
Yeah, and part to that is also that the hours of operation won't cause a disruption to the quiet or peaceful enjoyment of the neighborhood. Since the surrounding uses are primarily commercial with nearest residents to the east, and the beverage menu just merely expanding in a small variety of options and still remaining within the hours of operation as previously operated by the prior restaurant, the city finds that it won't be of a detriment to the surrounding neighborhoods to be able to provide the service in addition.
Thank you. And then the last thing I'll say is, for those who are not familiar with ABC, it's always really interesting if you go to the ABC website, which you can Google. There are several different types. This happens to be a type 41 on sale beer and wine. It's very specific to a restaurant and beer and wine sales. If you look down the list, they have on sale. They have another one called off sale that has to do with whether the alcohol is consumed on the premises or if it's takeout, like a liquor store where you take it out. So those are regulated differently. This one, if you want to consider it a hierarchy, this is kind of a lower level type license because it's limited to beer and wine within an existing restaurant. And as Mr. Stark indicated, there isn't a separate bar. They're not making changes to the restaurant itself. It's just adding the ability to serve beer and wine with food. And that's another thing that ABC looks at is it with food? Is it without food? Is it on sale? Is it off sale? And this one's happens to be limited to beer and wine. Other licenses allow other types of liquor to be sold. So there's any number of different types of licenses from ABC. And again, this one is kind of a lower level license specific to this type of a use. So I see that Mr. Lee, the applicant, is joining us. Mr. Lee, if you have any additional comments you would like to make, you can have up to 5 minutes. You're not required to make any comments, so I did want to give you the opportunity to speak if you have anything that you would like to add.
Mr. Lee, you're unmuted, so you are able to speak.
So I guess I'm assuming that do you have anything that you would like to add, Mr. Lee? Or if not, we can go to the public hearing. Okay. We will assume that Mr. Lee does not have any comments, so we'll go to the public hearing portion of this item. Recording secretary, do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
Not at this time.
Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you, staff, for the excellent presentation, for the follow-up comments. This is a very, as we were saying, this is a very straightforward application. Let me bring my comments over here. For this type of an application, which is a minor conditional use permit, minor versus major, again, it's differentiated in our zoning ordinance, and for minor CUP, it falls under the zoning administrator for approval, which is why we're here this morning. There are 3 official findings for approval, again, laid out in the zoning section 10-57 of our zoning ordinance. The first 2 are usually the first 2 findings of approval for any type of permit. First one is the proposed use consistent with the Milpitas general plan? Again, the staff report lays out several policies, land use policies, as well as others, economic development, health and wellness policies that related to responsible alcohol consumption and support for local businesses, that this application and the minor conditional use permit are consistent with the goals and policies of the Milpitas general plan. The second one is a finding is the proposed use consistent with the Milpitas zoning ordinance. Of course, the zoning ordinance being the primary tool and vehicle for implementing the general plan. And as noted in the staff report, the zoning ordinance provides that both restaurants and ancillary on-sale beer and wine sales are permitted within city code. As Mr. Stark indicated, this application has been thoroughly reviewed by both the planning department and other departments, including the Milpitas Police Department, and there are conditions of approval that are attached to protect health, safety, and welfare. As noted in the staff presentation, so there are conditions of approval related to hours of operation, and as well as a requirement that workers in the restaurant be trained for responsible alcohol consumption of patrons. And then the third finding, which is a little more discretionary, is that the proposed use at the proposed location will not be detrimental or injurious to property or improvements in the vicinity, nor to the public health, safety, and welfare. And again, this is an existing restaurant. They're not making any changes other than adding the service of beer and wine for their patrons to support the restaurant. And it will not change the parking. It will not change the neighborhood. And again, there are safeguards that are part of the conditions of approval that will ensure that the additional sale of beer and wine is not detrimental to the neighborhood. So being able to make all of those findings and acknowledging the exemption from CEQA, I will I will take staff's recommendation and adopt resolution 21-026, approving the minor conditional use permit MC 21-0012. This is to allow ancillary on-premise beer and wine sales with no separate bar, an ABC type 41 license within the existing 2,500 square foot restaurant at 1828 North Milpitas Boulevard, subject to the findings and the conditions of approval outlined and attached to the staff report. And with that, this item is approved, and we congratulate Mr. Lee and wish you the best, continued success in your business. Thank you, Avery, Mr. Stark. And we will now go to the second item on our agenda. Let me find that. The second item is a master sign program. Let me pull that over here. And this is a site development permit, master sign program for the Lantana multifamily project that will be described by staff in the upcoming report. Again, the zoning ordinance establishes the site development permit is required to establish a master sign program. The master sign program, of course, looks at the overall signage for a larger project. This often applies to office or commercial uses. In this case, it's a residential use, and we apply a master sign program because they have a number of signs around the building, different types of signs. And as you will hear in the staff report, the sign program regulates the location, type, size, materials, lighting, and other requirements for the project. And I I'm recalling now from the staff report that this is a mixed use project and there is some retail development on the ground floor that this will also provide for the signage there. It's a 2.35 acre mixed use development at 1675 South Milpitas Boulevard. And this is located within the transit area specific planning area, also soon to be known as the Milpitas Metro area. And we have our new associate planner, James Atkins, here to provide the staff report. And we welcome him. I'll turn the time over to James for the report.
Well, thank you, Director Thomas, and good morning, fellow staff and members of the public. I am presenting a site development permit application for the property located, as Director Thomas said, at 1675 South Milpitas Boulevard. This is for S&B Milpitas LLC. The project is called Lantana Master Sign Program. Next sign, please. Or next slide. On August 2nd, 2016, the City of Milpitas approved resolution number 8567, authorizing the development of Lantana, which consists of a 248,183 square foot mixed use development that includes 216 residential units as condominiums and 10,555 square feet of commercial space. The project is located at 1675 South Milpitas Boulevard, which is within the transit area specific plan and the Montague Corridor Subdistrict. The renderings that you're seeing here of the building elevations at the southwest and southeast corner along South Milpitas Boulevard, and these renderings provide a representation of some of the various signage types and the locations. Next slide. The project site is located on the north side of South Milpitas Boulevard, south of Montague Expressway and west of Gladding Court, which is immediately east of the Valley Transit Authority parking structure and the Milpitas BART station. The City of Milpitas requires all mixed-use buildings to have master sign programs. Staff has analyzed the master sign program and determined that the proposed standards comply with city's code. The Lantana Master Sign Program ensures consistent design of signage for the residential and commercial retail development and will dictate their size, placement, material, color, lighting, and construction. And the sign program is subdivided into 4 primary types: wall signs, monument signs, canopy signs, and blade signs. Next slide. Here we're taking a closer look at the primary wall sign. This sign type is generally used for building identification, and this particular sign is a vertical orientation, and this one is proposed to be placed on the south elevation along Milpitas Boulevard, and this sign is the largest sign proposed in the development. Next slide. Additional wall signs are oriented horizontally, and these are typical of the east, west, and north elevations for the building. Next slide. And the project also is proposing monument signs. These monument signs will also serve as project identification. There are 2 proposed for the development, and both of these are proposed along Montague Expressway at the property corners. These proposed monument signs include fabricated aluminum, painted dark navy blue with the project name Lantana, vertically oriented with LED backlit illumination. The monument signs also include some wayfinding. These are included with directional arrows pointing to the leasing office and the retail locations. Next slide. Canopy signs are also a part of the program. This is another type of significant identification. These identify important locations such as the entry, as you can see here. Next slide. Also, the leasing office has a canopy sign. And next, and also the parking. So essentially 3 areas that we're going to see canopy signs for this project. Blade signs are also included in the sign program. This sign type is used to identify specific uses in the project. For instance, retail that you're going to see along the ground floor of the project. These also provide maximum pedestrian visibility for the site. Next slide. Staff has confirmed that findings for the proposed site development permit can be made, which are discussed in the staff report. Next slide. And staff has determined that the project is exempt from CEQA per section 15182 and 15183. Staff has also determined that the project is consistent with the addendum to the TASP EIR adopted by City Council on November 17, 2015, and that the zoning designation of MXD-3 has addressed mixed-use development, which includes signage requirements for both residential and retail stores. Next slide. And the project was noticed in the local paper and postcards were sent out, and staff did not receive any comments on the project. And with that, staff recommends opening and closing the public hearing and approving P-SD21-0007 based on the finding provided in the staff report and subject to the condition of approval. And that does conclude my presentations, and I am available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. That was a great presentation. We really appreciate you and being here in Milpitas, and he's pinch hitting a little bit for our senior planner, Michael Fasati, who is out, but James, you did a great job. We really, again, appreciate your taking over this project and presenting the staff report this morning. I believe we have the designer for this project, Mr. Kyle Reith, on board, as well as the applicant, Mr. And I apologize if I don't get it, Tony. Oh, excuse me, Sagatohidi. Hopefully I got that correct. The applicant here today. And if either of you have any additional comments you'd like to make, you have up to 5 minutes to, and we'd like to give you an opportunity to speak.
This is Kyle Reith. I think Mr. Atkins summed it up perfectly well. I have really nothing to add. I'm just available for any questions or comments anyone might have, but I think it's pretty straightforward.
I would agree. Thank you very much. I don't have any additional questions. I think, yeah, I agree. It's these sign programs tend to be very straightforward. I will just make commentary. I was down by the BART station yesterday, and I've had my eye on the Lantana project while it's been under construction. It's probably one of the best located projects in the city, and I think it's an excellent example of the intent and the vision of the transit area specific plan, now known as the Milpitas Metro Plan. You know, it's a beautiful building, it's mixed use, and it's within a stone's throw of the BART station. I think it will be very successful, and it's a very well-designed building. It's beautiful, it has interesting coloring, and I believe that the signage, you know, from what I've seen in the staff report, it's very complementary to the building. And I think this is such a good example of why we have a master sign program, because as Mr. Atkins showed in the staff report, you know, there are many different types of signs, and this one includes them all. It has large wall signs, the blade signs, the monument signs, and all of them are, you know, complementary in color and design, and really just are kind of like icing on the cake, so to speak, for this project. It unifies it together. And, you know, it's always nice when the signage is eye-catching and very interesting, nice design, and consistent across the site. So those are some of my comments. I don't particularly have any questions. I will open the public hearing. If there are any members of the public who wish to speak on this item, hearing or recording secretary Liz, are there anyone in the queue that would like to speak?
Not at this time, zoning administrator.
All right, thank you. We'll close the public hearing then. And again, I think the location, all of the particulars of this project were covered very well. The staff report outlines, again, conformance with the general plan and with the zoning ordinance. And our zoning ordinance provides slightly different findings for this type of a project. And I'm just scrolling down to find them. So for a site development permit, again, there are actually some additional, in addition to consistency with our codes and general plan. And we'll just take a look at those really quickly. If you bear with me, because it it's related to design, there are a few extras. So first one is that all elements of the sign, including design, lighting, scale, length, materials, are consistent with the intent of the general plan, the sign ordinance, which is part of the zoning ordinance, and any applicable specific plan. Again, this was covered by Mr. Atkins, and I've already commented on that. And again, we appreciate the attention to detail and the design of the signs. The second finding is that the design, scale, materials, and sign harmonize with the architectural details and details of the building and the site it serves. Again, I've covered that in my comments. It's interesting, in the staff report notes that the signs are fabricated with no visible like rivets, screws, fastening devices. So we really get down into the nitty-gritty details of how the sign looks. And in this case, again, these are high quality signs. They've been fabricated, in this case with channel letters, logos, and they have colors and graphics that complement and enhance the main building. And also, you know, the wayfinding, we don't regulate necessarily content of the sign, but the wayfinding is a nice addition, so that people are, because we will have, well, I guess my larger comment is, again, with a master sign program like this, it's applicable because you have signs at different scales. Some of them are, you know, the large monument sign, identification signs on the wall signs on the building, kind of intended maybe for people who are passing by quickly in their cars. But as this is in the transit area, we have a lot of pedestrians. And so the monument signs, as you saw in the graphics that were shown by Mr. Atkins, that they are at a pedestrian scale. And then the wayfinding provides, gives the ability for pedestrians to find their way to either the cars to the parking garage, but pedestrians to the leasing office and to the retail. The third finding, design and scale of the sign is appropriate to the distance from which the sign is normally viewed. Just covered that. Fourth one, design and materials of the sign provide a contrast between the background and the letters. We've seen that in the graphics that were shown on the screen, and there's additional ones in the staff report. Number 5, if a freestanding sign is included in the sign application, the design, scale, location of the building dictates the use of the freestanding sign rather than building mounted signs. And as we saw in the staff or in the presentation this morning, there are 2 freestanding signs, and the design matches the color of the building, and there's a slightly increased scale and height up to 8 feet, and that captures the attention of both motorists and it as also at the scale for pedestrian needs. Number 6, the provisions of the sign program ensure consistency in design and style of all the new signs. And we've covered that today. Next, the provisions of the sign program address compatibility of design and style of any existing signs on the building. This is a new building, so all the signage will be new, but it's all consistent. And I would say that it not only enhances the building, but also enhances the surrounding neighborhood. And we would hope that other buildings and future buildings will take note of how well this has been designed. And then the last finding is that all new signs within sign program are compliance with the design guidelines of this chapter, meaning chapter 10, section 24 of title 11 of the Milpitas Municipal Code. And the standards again apply here. The signage is compatible with architectural and color and placement and appropriate scale with the buildings. So with that, and thank you for bearing with me, there's quite a few findings for this one, but we're able to make all of the findings. I'll take note of the consistency with the addendum to the TASP environmental impact report that was prepared in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act here. Again, the signage, when we say consistency with the addendum or consistency with the EIR, that there is no substantial changes that are proposed with the sign program that would require either revisions to the EIR or to the addendum. And so, and I'd like to note that just on, we always, it's kind of belts and suspenders approach, but on a separate and independent basis, the project is also exempt from CEQA because it is consistent with the specific plan for this area, as well as the community plan and zoning. So with that, I, as the hearing officer today, I will accept staff's recommendation and adopt resolution 21-027 approving the site development permit P-SD 21-0007 to allow the master sign program for Lantana, which is the mixed use project on a 2.3 acre site located at 1675 South Milpitas Boulevard, again, subject to the findings and the conditions of approval, which are included with the resolution in the staff report. And again, we appreciate your participation this morning in today's hearing. And again, congratulate you on, I believe the building is either complete or nearing completion, and we look forward to having new residents moving into the building and enjoying the new signage. So anyway, thank you very much for your participation today. And thank you. With that, that is all of the items that we have for our hearing today. And I have some legalese and then we'll adjourn the meeting. So any person aggrieved by any decision of any board, commission, or department head of the city of Milpitas may appeal the decision to the city council by filing written notice of the appeal with the city clerk within 12 calendar days of the date of said decision and paying the required fee. The time limit shall be strictly enforced. And just by way of explanation, what that means is that the decisions rendered today, there is an appeal period of 12 calendar days before those go into full effect. But both items were approved today. This concludes the administrative hearing for December 9th, 2021. And again, we thank everyone for their participation. And again, thanks to Mr. Atkins and to Mr. Stark, and also to our recording secretary, Liz Medina, and to our IT department. I believe it's Matthias today, and Ellerin, and we appreciate your help with our meeting today. Thank you.